You're still here in time. Wow. Good for you. How was it, Evan? I like to go really late at night or really early. Yeah, that's why.
That's what Rabbi Baras said. Why?
He just loves your quantity of quality question.
Oh, that's cute.
Can you use a soap on Shabbos that like is made to foam, like when it comes to
But Moshe says no. Moshe was concerned about.
it's like no lot?
Yeah, yes. Okay, Shayna. Shayna Green, Stephen. Right, Shayna? Right? Can you raise again? Welcome. Okay. O'Connor. And, okay, 1 second. Let me. Your name is Nadia Gold. Okay. Hannah. See, there's Hannah. Okay. And down. Was. Do I have it right?
You have one,
Yes, thank you.
Do you need one or
Give
is
a
it all of
Rivka?
you?
I have it right, okay. And
I like this like.
Tehillah,
Hi,
right, okay.
good morning.
Good morning,
How are you?
Baruch Hashem. And let's see. Tova Razel? No, I don't have it right.
That's
I said it, I called her name, she didn't respond, but I got it right. Okay. Tova Razel, here. And now let's see. Sirka? No.
That's like
That's-
Yiddish for
can-
my name, though.
It should be, all right. No. No. Sarah. Sarah Abigail. Okay. Okay, so let's see who is. Me. And Sammy Tyberg. That Bina? Who do I have on Zoom? Okay, so let's see. Again, name. Okay, we got it. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're on sewing on page 231.
Rabbi, before we start,
Yes,
so last week we were talking about knots.
not, yes.
And basically the bottom line is that you can make a knot as long as it's a temporary one. So like taking out the trash, as long as it's like, as long as it's like not like a serious knot.
That's right.
I just want to make sure we're.
So with the garbage, it's just suggested you tie it once. That's not considered a knot in any way. That even if you leave that permanently, it is not considered a tie. However, with the shoes, when you make a bow, that does keep, and therefore it's the 24-hour intention. So in the Mishkan, we had the curtains that were made in sections. And the lower curtains were 10, 5, and 5, so the 5% together. And so the Av Malacha is permanent stitch. You have 2 stitches and tying the end of the thread. That would make it so sewing also would be something that is holding. So it would be either 2 stitches and tying the end, or 3 stitches even without tying, that also would hold. So now the idea of sewing is having 2 items that are going to be attached by a third item. So we have the 2 ends of the material, and it's being connected by a third item, which is the thread. So that is a key in this malacha. If there is 2 things and it's going to be held by a third item that's going to keep the 2 together, that would be included in this malacha of sewing. So on page 231, we have number 1, sticking 2 things together. So using a glue, the glue is going to, you have the 2 ends that we are gluing together, and the glue is which is keeping the 2 together. That makes it the category of sewing. The same would also apply, number 2, if someone's hem got loose, or someone's button got loose, and then pulling the thread, where it tightens the 2 ends, or tightens the button to the garment, that is sewing. So it's not only starting it to the very beginning, but also reinforcing it, making the 2 ends together. So on Shabbos, it is not permissible. So if a hem comes out, you cannot pull the thread to pull the hem together. What you have to do is change. Now, on page 232, Rabbinic Prohibition is, even if it's temporary, which would mean 2 stitches without tying, so that would also go into this category. On page 232, well, we have the other items that attach 2 things together, and let's look on 233 first, and then we'll go back to 232. And that is a zipper. Why would a zipper not go into this category? Because-
we would not have anything to wear.
So we said the idea of sewing is, taking two separate items and having something, a third item that's going to attach them together. So if it is a thread, it's taking two separate items, putting them together, the thread is attaching the two. When we have the glue, that's attaching the two together. When we have a zipper, how does a zipper work? What happens when we zip? What happens?
Together.
It interlocks the two together. So we don't have a third item that is closing it together. In addition to the fact that it's made to open and close permanently, it's just like so that would make it permissible. But the idea itself is that the zipper does not go into the category of sewing to begin with, even though it would be permissible for other reasons as well. But as far as sewing is concerned, it would not go into that category. The same is also when it comes to Velcro. What's the idea of Velcro? What happens when we have fastened the two pieces together? Again, we have the loops that attach themselves. There's no third item in between. You have one side, the other side, and there's nothing that is connecting. There's no third item that's connecting the two. So therefore, that would not go into the category of sewing. Same would also be with snaps. Same would also be with buttons. So for some reason, with zippers, there are those who refrain from using a zipper that's made to remain a long time as attaching a lining of a raincoat. So they have another definition of sewing. The definition I gave you is the one that's the conventional definition, that has to be three items, the two sides and a third item that's going to attach the two. That is the conventional reason. The other one seems to be something more of having two things that are going to be attached for a long period of time. But that's not the accepted opinion, the mainstream halachic codifiers. Now, with a safety pin. Safety pin does meet the criteria of sewing. You have the two ends, and we have the pin, which is the metal that's going to take the place of the thread. So how does that work? So we have the idea of sewing. We define sewing as two stitches, going in, going out, and then it is sewing. If you only go through once, it's not sewing. So the same would also be when it comes to a safety pin. What is recommended is that you only go through once. So if what we're going to be doing with a safety pin is use it instead of a button. So if we want to have these two sides together, we would put the safety pin through and then close it. And what it's doing is it's now as a button. It's not meant to as a sewing, which a sewing would be going in and out, making the stitches. So that would be the way to use a safety pin. So back again to the hem. When the hem came out, one would be permitted to pin it and then just go through once instead of going through as a sewing action. A stapler, again, is the same as sewing, where we have the two papers, and then we have that staple. The third item that is keeping the two together would be the same as glue, the same as a thread. So stapling would be also in this category. Now we have the we have those items that one of the examples that's given here is a diaper. We have Pampers, diapers. So they have they're fastened together with sticky stuff. So here the question is this the place of glue, which we said is sewing? However, if it's meant to open and close, so then it goes into another category. It would be used like a button. So there are those who say that if one is going to be using that type of item, there is usually a safety, what is it? What would we call it? Something that if you have these, let's take when it comes to, let's use a Band-Aid as an example. On the Band-Aid, in order that when you take it out of the packet, it shouldn't stick to the packet, there is a film of, what do we call it? Some type of film, some film that prevents it from sticking. And that is removed, and then you use the item. The same would also be with diapers, Pampers, or other items that are meant to be fastened. So there too, we want to make it into a button. We want to make it to something that is used to open and close. So therefore, there are those who recommend to remove it before Shabbos and then put it back. So when you'll need it, it's available because you already started to indicate that it's going to be used as a fastener that's going to be open and closed. And therefore, that would be the permissible way. So that would be, that is recommended. In this book, I don't see it. Other books do recommend that you open up the fastener, you open it up and put it back before Shabbos. You know, you make an assessment of how many you will be using, depending on how often, if you were speaking about Pampers, diapers, how often you change the child. You need 5, 10, or I hope not 1 for all of Shabbos.
Poor child.
So I'm not going to continue my train of thought, but there was someone who used to boast that she was a 2-pamper mother, changed the child twice a day. Okay.
Oh.
She was proud of it. So I hope no one takes that I hope people learn a lesson from that, not to do that. But anyway, so you make an estimate of how many you will be using throughout the Shabbos, and you open up the tabs. But that's what it's called. It's called a tab. So you open up the tabs before Shabbos, put it back. However, if one did not open the tabs before Shabbos, there is a leniency still to open it because your intention is not to keep it there over Shabbos, to change and remove it before Shabbos. What is also, one should be, so we said since it's temporary, we use it as a button, and therefore you open it and close it, use it as Velcro. That's the same idea. So it's meant to be open and closed. It's not meant to be a fastener. That's going to be something that's a permanent nature. We do say that at the end, in the weekdays, what people will do when they have that which is sticky, to close it. So when throwing it away, one should not close it deliberately because that's meant to be in a permanent way. Just like we spoke about when we were throwing out the garbage, not to make a bow and then throw it out because that's going to remain that way. So the same thing is also to not to stick it closed again. because that's not intended to open again. So the reason why it is permissible is because it's meant to open and close constantly. So we're using it as a button. Yes.
So you can't like, like sometimes when people like learn how to like this, they roll it up and just like,
It's not to fasten it.
you can't
Just-
do that?
No, just roll it up and throw it out. Put it in a plastic bag.
So you can like change your Band-Aid on
Yes.
Shabbos?
Okay.
I sort of just figured I was breaking it out in mass.
Okay, so one may change the Band-Aid. We're speaking about for safety, for cleanliness, for,
Yeah.
our issue would be not to put a salve on the Band-Aid itself. That's a separate issue. We're going to speak about smearing that we're going to cover when we come to that. But as far as the Band-Aid itself is concerned, that would be,
Just using the Band-Aid
that's
coverage.
right. That would be fine.
And then obviously if it was like really bad, then you could put like a Neosporin or something.
You would put it on the wound itself, and then not to put it on the Band-Aid, but rather on the wound, and then just put a Band-Aid on. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay, so now we go to sewing, and then there's unsewing, which we call tearing. So in the Mishkan on page 235, in the Mishkan, when it came necessary to repair the curtains, if it had a round hole, you would have to tear above and below and then bring them closer together, not to form a fold. So the tearing was done, or if the stitching wasn't done properly, you have to redo it. So here again, the tearing is done with the purpose of resewing it in a better way. So it's not just the tearing itself, it's a tearing with the intention of resewing. So on page 236, so the tolda is separating two things which are attached to each other. So again, here we would have things that are attached by the staple or with the glue or with a thread, separating the two, and with the intention of redoing it again. That would be a Torah prohibition. Rabbinical prohibition would be to tear something with no intention to sew it back again.
Then you can.
Yes. Now, now the Rabbanan said that even if it's not meant to be repaired, that too is also forbidden. And therefore, let's see what is the issue on page 236 with paper. In all other circles, so we consider paper as an item that is tearable and repairable. We consider it in that category. There are those who consider paper as one entity. It's not made of parts. So that would be two opinions about paper and what category does it go. Is it same as cloth? Or does it have its own category like leather? And therefore, this is something that's controversial among the halachic authorities. Now, cutting something to size has its own halacha. So let's look at page 236 with the paper. Now, to begin with, let's use the tissues, toilet paper. So if it is in a package, one should open it before Shabbos. That's our number one. The issue with the box, it's glued together, it's perforations, it has its own issues of opening up a box on Shabbos. So the box should be opened before Shabbos. What happens if you do not have tissues? There's just a toilet paper roll. So tearing it on the perforations is tearing to size. That's an issue in its own. So that's out. So what happens if one did not? So again, if one is using a roll, so that should be cut up before Shabbos, size that is going to be used. Same would also apply, not cutting to size would also be, if you have, sometimes there's garbage bags that come in a roll, but in order to use them, you would have to tear each one separately. The same thing also goes with some of the tablecloths, that they also come in a roll, and there's a size that is also perforated, where you tear that. There's also the plastic, the rolls of plastic bags that are also part of it. So all of these, since they're being torn to a specific size, in addition to tearing, right now the issue would be tearing to a size. So all of these items should be made available for Shabbos. If you have the garbage bags that are on a roll, you should tear a certain amount as is needed. Same thing is going to be with the, you have the towel paper. If you want to use towel paper for Shabbos, also it should be torn. Again, that's also perforated. All of this should be torn before Shabbos, and there's someone should be designated. That's their Shabbos preparation job. Now, what happens if you're stuck? So, let's see. Yes.
What's with the alpine tissues? I didn't really look closely at them, but I saw tissues at cons. They're alpine and they had like something on them, like it's for Shabbos.
Which means that they're not, you have sometimes the tissues, they're all attached to each other, and as you're pulling them, you rip them as they go. For Shabbos, it is, they're only interlocked. And when you pull them, there's no tearing involved because they're all free. Same doesn't have, that would be what they're, if it says for Shabbos use, that's the idea. So it could be other brands as well. If you are using the tissues, you should check before Shabbos to be aware of what kind of tissue it is. If they're all attached to each other and you, as you're using them, you pull them apart, that should not be used on Shabbos.
Do you know any specific brands that like are attached?
Oh, the Elegant, here in Crown Heights, we have the Elegant brand is fine.
But I'm saying, do you know any specific brand that specifically does have that?
They used to all be that way. That's why you had to have a special Shabbos one, because now you have the puffs are not that way. What other brand is there? Kleenex is not that way. Kleenex is also able to be used for Shabbos. At one point, they were all
Kleenex, you
Kleenex
are
is-
able?
Yeah, I believe so. It's from what they're not attached. I think the Kleenex, so I'd have to, check for sure. Since I use them, I guess I assume that it is that way. I have to really go back to the package and see what happens when I'm, when are they attached or
No,
not.
usually you pull one and
The other one comes up, right, but are they being torn inside the box? I don't think so. I don't feel any, that there's any resistance. So that's why I'm
No
saying,
resistance.
there's no resistance. That's what I'm assuming.
I opened the side of some boxes to see how it is, and they're folded.
So if they're interfolded, they're fine.
Kleenex and 99.
Interfold. At one point, they used to all be attached, and you had to, I guess it was easier for them to manufacture it that way instead of having a folding machine, but now I guess it became more common. So what you would, if you are buying a new brand that you're not familiar with, you should check before Shabbos to see what is the status of that box. So if they're interlocked one another, interfolded one with another, then it's all fine.
You don't know any specific brands that would
That-
be.
No,
Okay.
I guess. So one who is does have a role, and it is for human dignity. So it says that try to tear the paper, not under perforation, but with a change as your elbows, try not to tear under perforation. So at other times, in other books, they would tell you to use it and throw it into the toilet, and then have the water tear it as you flush the toilet. That was the conventional what they would say. Again, this is,
Apparently my father learned the hard way in Shiva that that just makes the whole roll get wet, so I would not recommend that.
okay, so, but I'm just saying, so this was so what was in other advice was given that you use it and then throw it in it's still attached to the roll. You throw that portion into the toilet, you flush it, so you didn't tear anything because the water is doing it for you. That's, but over here, they're pretty lenient. And again, because they're relying on that paper does not go into this category to begin with. The only problem is the preparation. So you're tearing some to size. Because as far as the tearing the paper itself, so therefore, if you tear the paper with your elbows, so then tearing is not considered, you're remembering that it's Shabbos, and tearing would not be an issue. So we hear this more lenient opinion. Yes.
What about like intentionally like tearing it between the paper?
So that would be according to the two authorities.
Is that okay?
Is it, so it matters what category we put paper in. It matters what category we put paper in. Is paper like material or is paper like leather? Leather you are permitted to tear. Sewing and unsewing, tearing would apply to material that's made of parts. If it's one natural,
So toilet paper?
no, we're speaking about, but that goes into the category. We're asking about what category does paper go in to begin with?
I think it probably does, like material, because it's like made of stuff mushed together, like how cloth is woven together or whatever.
Again?
Well, paper is just like smushed up tree pulp and it's all like compressed
That's
together,
correct.
so I think it probably would count as material.
So that's it. So that would be, the halakhic authorities, would have different opinions about what category paper is in. Is it like material or is it like leather? If it's like leather, so tearing it would not be an issue if you're not tearing it to size. If it's material, so then you cannot tear material on Shabbos, even if your intention is not to resew it, but the fact that it is the material should not be torn on Shabbos.
Rabbi,
So according to the opinion that says that the paper is like leather, in that case, we would be, this is one entity. We don't consider it parts. Even though after it's pressed together, then we say the paper is one piece. We don't say it's like, so if I take a cloth, they say even though it's not one piece, it's made of all these fabrics that are so.
Rabbi? Oh, sorry. My question is just, how is it possible to tear toilet paper with your elbows? Like, if you're in a restroom and you need to like, I can't see myself figuring out how to do that in a pinch.
So it's a question of being of actually being able to do that. Now we have the book knowledge, and then we have practical, practice. I never experimented with it to see how is it something that actually could be done or not that way. So
How about just the back of my hands? Some kind of weird hand position.
that would be fine.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So you can't like, just to clarify, between those lines, you can't like,
You can't tear. That's correct.
because like I can't do like.
Okay,
that,
so
like,
what about with this? What about with this?
Oh, yeah. Like, can I
Look
do
this-
like with holding with my fingers
like
and
this.
stuff? Like
It should be done in an unusual way.
So like this, I can do it.
like,
Yeah.
If I can,
Yes,
if
yes,
I
yes,
get
yes,
to do it,
Yes,
I can.
yes.
Can you use your knuckles?
Your knuckles are also fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question when it comes to like opening like a bag.
Okay, we'll come to that. That's a separate chapter. We'll have that, which is a little tied into what we're now, but it's a separate chapter of opening up boxes and packages and all of that. Some of the items will be the issue will be ungluing. That is relevant to what we're doing now. So there would be the glue that is attaching the tops of a box. So that would be one issue. And then another issue is taking a box and destroying a box. That's its own issue. So all the packages and everything else, we will have a separate chapter on that. Yes.
So the halachos that you can't rip the like material on Shabbos,
That's correct.
So what's the difference between ripping it like this or ripping it with the back of my hands and my elbows?
Oh, because here the ripping itself, if your intention is to resew it, redo it, then it's a Torah prohibition. If it is the intention just to take them apart without redoing them again, then it's rabbinic. The rabbinic prohibitions were put in place also, if there's for human dignity, they made leniencies. So in this case, that would be the leniency, because we do want to take care of the situation.
In that case, is it more important that we not rip along the perforation, or more important that we not use our regular hands? If we have to
More
choose one or
important
the other.
not to rip on the preparations.
Okay. Because I'm thinking, if I'm in a pinch and I can't use whatever, so it's better that I just rip with my regular hands, but in a non-perforated part than if I'm okay.
Yes. So it will be relying on the opinion that says that paper is like one entity. It's not like material, and therefore the restriction does not apply. So you could rely on that in such a situation. You could
Okay.
rely on that opinion.
Okay.
But you're saying that it's better not to rip the toilet
Preparation,
before,
not to
not to rip the toilet paper before the Shabbos starts.
everything before Shabbos. Everything should be done before Shabbos.
Yeah.
That's the recommended.
You're saying
On Shabbos itself, we were stuck.
So basically, the first, it's good to just rip it before. And
That's
then
correct.
on your bathroom, just have the rip toilet.
That's correct.
But if your bathroom doesn't have a rip,
Yes,
then you should use tissues. But if there's no tissues, then you should just be awkward and rip it in a weird way.
yes,
But really, you should just rip it before and you're on.
that's correct. Yes. Okay, cotton would go into this. Cotton would go into this category. So one should not take apart cotton. Let's see. We'll stop here. Yes.
For sanitary napkin, would you do the same way as a diaper and just attach and detach before Shabbos?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If
If you didn't,
know before Shabbos,
then you were allowed to. Because again, the intention is not to keep it there permanently. It's meant to be used as to open and close, not to be left. So then it would be that one would be permitted to use it this way.
I just have a clarification question. You said that, so we can't rip on Shabbos, even if we don't have an intention to sew it back together. Great. But I was confused about when you do have the intention to sew it back together, you still can't do it, or you
Then for sure not. That is the malacha. That is the Torah prohibition.
okay.
It's tearing something with the intention of sewing together, as was in the Mishkan, when they sewed the panels together. If it wasn't done right, they would undo it and then resew it again. If there was a defect, you didn't want any folds, you had to rip it, cut out the defect, put the two sides together. That's the way it was done in the Mishkan, as sewing as a malacha. So that is the Torah prohibition. That cannot be done. And the Rabbanan also added that any material that is no ripping any materials.
Is there because you might be able to sew it back?
It's an act that is, I guess, connected to that malacha, and therefore we want to stay away from it as much as possible. Okay, let me see. Those who came later.
Rabbi, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Can you say that the halachas all root from the building of the Mishkan and things that they did we cannot do today? Is that how it works, or where did they originally
Yes.
root from?
It does come. The Torah says not to do any malacha, not to do any forbidden activity. What is the definition? So Moshe Rabbeinu told us that definition is 39 categories of forbidden activities. These 39 activities were done as part of the Mishkan, and Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people before they build the Mishkan that it cannot be done on Shabbos. So all of these 39 categories that was a part of the building of the Mishkan, they were told beforehand that on Shabbos they cannot be done. So therefore this applies, and in all its different ramifications as well.
Okay, thank you.
So let me, those who came in later, let's see, Menashe, Chaim, Menashe, let's see, we have Chedva, Shagalov, Soramora. Let's see, who else do we have? Leah Rappaport. Leah Rappaport. Okay, who else did I miss? Greenstein. Shana Greenstein. Okay, sitting at the end of the, next to Chaya, her name is? Your name is Toby. Okay. Okay. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Oh.
No, some preparation 2 points off.
Let me be
Oh, it
let me
can.
be the
But isn't it last video?
No.
How do you?
No, it's not working. And it's going on preparation. Yeah, I know. No, but what if it's on the wall? You can't do that on the wall. Take it off the wall. Nope, it went on.
Preparation.
Wait, okay. What if you do this?
Oh, you're tossing. That's why it's a good idea to just
What if you like start with
Oh, you make a little
a
tear.
three thing, and then now you do this.
Okay.
No.
Wait,
are you?
This is my avatar.
on your leg.
I would just release.
Can you do this before and then just go like this for the last bit? Oh, if you go like this, now it's still
You almost got it.
Wow, you really put in a good effort here.
Sometimes I've been to a meal at a random person's house and they don't have tissues or pre-used toilet paper, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do?
I don't get why he's
Right
sitting there and it's like slowly. I have a feeling we should just do it like this, not on the every day. I just like rip it every day, so just sitting here and slowly doing it. I just like, what if you get a friend to remove? Be good.
No, because those things
Like,
you
you
do
can
it. Yeah. Because usually what I would do is like this.
So we can sound like that.
Just try to do it not like in between, not on. In between, not on. No, that's still your fingers.
You can't, wait, you're not supposed to use your
Like this,
You can't just like rip it halfway through.
Like this,
Like a square. Like,
Oh.
what about this one? Just like that.
Maybe that's not you.
Yeah, but you kind of grab.
Just rip it out.
Either way, but it's better to do it like with your hands between the lines and do it with your elbows on the lines. Okay, so let's forget the elbows. I think we should stop. Not very practical. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi. Wait, sorry, did you guys ask him why? Oh, Rabbi. Yeah, about the COVID. Okay, but I have to be. Okay,
but I have to be. Or free rip, yeah, that's also.
Yeah, but it's, you know, pretty simple.
Yeah. Okay, ready?
Preciso fazer umas ligações.
Ah,
Adoraria.
eu tô com fome.
Tadinha.